15 seconds. And we testing the sound, so let us know if you can hear us.
Ordered. Come down to Rush Hour and join us, that's for sure.
Rush Hour is the place to be.
All right, thank you.
Everybody find the page, like the page, share the page. Can you see it? Can you hear us? Because it's all live. All right. Is it live?
Are we live yet?
Okay, yes.
Yes.
I think that's your microphone, Jabbar.
We are live.
We are live. All right, so we live here at the Rush Hour. Welcome to the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club. I'm your brother John, and
the one and only Carla B.
Right. This is your boy Shouty Soprano.
And this program is being brought to you by the Community Development and Training Center, aka CDAT, under the New Image Project. We want to help you. We want to thank you for helping us redefine what's cool. Today we have a wonderful program in store for you. We have the Black Media Meetup, and I'm about to give y'all this shot where you can see all of this black excellence, all of this melanin, and every time you move that mic, you make a lot of noise. So you got to hold on to it. All right. There we go. Just hold it steady. All right. I'm hearing it somewhere. We got a mic that's giving a lot of feedback. Oh yeah, I see Reno in the back too, right? All right. So look at all this black excellence right here. So we're gonna go around the room and just do some introductions of who we have here, who's in the building with us, and we're gonna start on this end of the table. Let me see over here. Hello. All right.
Good morning. And thank you, Brother John Hammett, for having us. We are Richard and Barbara's Love, and we're with the Bulletin newspaper out of St. Petersburg, Florida.
All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daisy Lane. I'm with 99 Jamsburg. I am a radio show host, also with WPIR 98.4 FM. You can catch me on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Streamer, Automac. Yeah, I'm everywhere. So, hey, don't forget, I'm also on YouTube. And so you can catch me there everywhere.
All right.
My name is Timber Chabanda. I am from Black Power 96.3 FM, WBPU FM radio station here in St. Petersburg. Our motto is not just explaining the world, but changing it.
Hi, I'm Jake Ann Jones. I'm here for the Weekly Challenger print, and you can also catch us online at theweeklychallenger.com. We are the 53-year-old St. Petersburg and Pinellas County newspaper.
Hi, I'm Andrea Peaton. I am with On the Beat St. Pete and 3 Black Vegan Girls. Behind me, I have DeMarcus, Charlene, and our absent person today is Chandra.
All right, Miss Single in the city, is that? All right, and we know Shawty Soprano, and so what we wanted to do today was we want to have a conversation about the importance of black media, the role of black media, and just how important it is for us to control our narrative and us taking charge of our stories. This, of course, is the 1-year anniversary of the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club, and we're here broadcasting live from Rush Hour. Chicken and Waffles. Make sure that y'all support them black-owned businesses. And we just want to jump right into the conversation and really open it up and ask, how did you all get involved with media? And if you could tell us briefly, how did you begin your interest in media, and why is it important?
I started out in radio about 5 years ago, and I actually was starting off just messing around with some friends online, just because they wanted to start a radio station. So I was just playing around, and then we got to talking about some, adult things, and then they said, you should do this. You got the voice for it. And so I started doing that, and I realized that more and more people did not have the information that I have to go ahead and just let the world know, or whatever ears my voice fell upon, know what was going on. Because a lot of things were being said wrong, or the wrong information was given out to them. And when I say them, I mean us of color, because everything is always looked at as a white person's, Caucasian, no, I'm not sorry, white person's view. You know what I'm saying? And we don't, us women of color, men of color, do not have the same issues that we were talking about, that white men and white women have. So it was very important to me to go ahead and expel that and show that and let our people know how the correctly, safely, and fun ways to do things that we like to do.
All right. Timber, how did you get involved?
Oh, well, back in Chicago when I was 18.
And they said you need to project. There we go.
Say it from the chest.
Say it from the chest. There we go.
All right. So back in Chicago, when I was like 18 years old, it was a decision. My mother had told me either I would go to college or I would go to the military, get a job, or get out. So I chose to go to college. And my mother, so upon that decision, I was searching for a major, and the only major that had the least amount of math was broadcast communications. So I took that, and I always was able to write and all that type of stuff. But that's basically what brought me to the decision to run away from math brought me here, and now I'm the Black Power 96.3 FM station manager. So that's really the how I got into radio, and from there I started to excel and really enjoy radio, and now I understand, working for my people, the very importance of radio and black media in general. So because it's winding down and it's being attacked. Right. So we have to. This is rare. This is a rare situation that we're in right now, and it's our responsibilities, as conscious, African people within this community. It's our responsibility to come together, and say this is how we're gonna use our power. So, that's basically how I got involved in it. I know that, but yeah,
Thank you. Chicken.
My history in media started in New York. In undergrad, I was on the radio show at CCNY in Harlem. So from there, I started working with different publications, black startups in New York, specifically New Word and Shade Magazine, which were both very seminal for their time in the 90s. They were really the first African-American startups. And then I worked in film and video for a long time in New York before I moved here to Florida. So I started working for the Challenger in 2017, and I'm just really big on black representation, black stories. I still do a lot of creative writing. I have a couple of books coming out. I just really believe that we have to continue to grab our narrative and tell the stories that we need to tell. We cannot leave it to anybody else, and we also need to support that kind of stuff. I know it's easy for folks to go to the movies. Actually, they don't even go to the movies anymore. They buy bootleg videos and they get to, they watch it online. But, we are struggling as a newspaper because nobody puts their money into the newspaper business anymore. And I would say very easily, if the Weekly Challenger was to go away, St. Pete would be bereft of something. So I really think we need to support our publications more. That's going to be my whole thing today. Support, support, support.
Right. Charlene, talk to me.
Hey, so, same story. In undergrad, I minored in mass communications, but for the most part, I worked in health education, how to get people to understand really complicated health issues. A couple years ago, while I was doing some work with Silver Lake Boys Associated, I started realizing that there was a need for different stories to be told from the community, that there were all these wonderful people. I'm not originally from St. Pete. And I've moved away, came back. But this last time I started realizing that there were so many people behind the scenes, the Brother Johns, the Jabars, the Carla Bristols. And actually I have a very great story about Carla that I'm going to tell in 2 seconds. But I realized that there were all these great people doing all these wonderful things behind the scene that the Tampa Bay Times weren't covering, that Bay News 9 wasn't covering, and I felt like we needed someone to tell our own story, and that the internet was free, and that social media was free, and that I didn't need a license to do that. And so I did that, and the very first thing when I said, I'm going to do this, I created On the Beat St. Pete, and the very first story, the very first thing that I covered was Carla's Black Arts Festival on the Deuces. When I tell you, it was amazing, and still to this day, it was probably one of the greatest things I feel like I did, just because it was so organic, it was so natural, it was just something that happened that no one, the Tampa Bay Times or Bay Newslines, like I said, they weren't going to cover those things. They weren't going to tell Carla's story about how she worked so hard to pull the community together to make that happen. The Brother John stories, that same day, I'll tell a story about Jabbar. That same day, we covered the Black Arts film at the Royal Theater with Jabbar and Cranston. That was on the same day. So that was like my first project. And, you know, it was the first time I got introduced to these two. But I just felt like there was a need to tell our story on a more intimate level, to tell our own narrative.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Mr. Love.
Oh, well, sure. I was kind of taking my senior citizen moment. There's so much that the black media should be doing. My wife wrote an article one time about potential. Well, when I got up about 2:30 this morning to prepare for this workshop we're having here, I went to my computer and I put the question in, why is black media important? And it gave me, what's his name, Chevis, can't think of his last name, who is the president of the NNPA. Shavers. He was here about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and he was in a position to do something for another newspaper, but for whatever reason, his project has not been realized. My point is this: we've got supposedly 47 million blacks in America, and we don't read anymore. We're into the social media game, and you wonder why since 2014 there's been 1,400 black newspapers throughout the country who have closed or ceased to operate. That's because we have ceased to become salesmen and continue to be beggars. When you watch the BET TV show tonight on the TV, a lot of us will be watching it. I want you to listen for one thing. They have never, none of these black NAACP Image Award shows has ever said on their national thing, go out and support the local black businesses. And there's a reason for that. Corporate America will yank their sponsors here, because the last thing I want to share with you, about 25 or 30 years ago, on the back of the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, that was a picture of not Martin Luther King, but Jesse Jackson, the lady who founded NCNW, the president of the Urban League. And the point I'm making is the owner of the Wall Street newspaper, when he woke up that morning and saw this beautiful picture on the back of his product, he gave the order to go and take up every doggone newspaper that had been distributed. Why? His response was he didn't want them Negroes getting the idea that they had power, because there's never been another picture of any powerful black folks in America, only is when we're getting victimized, Bill Cosby, and people like that. But bottom line, my whole thing is, if we don't really know better, we can't do better.
Right.
Is that what we're
Absolutely.
saying? Yeah, do better.
Absolutely.
So,
Mr. Love, I want to go to the next.
No, wait. Actually, at that point, I really want to find out what made you start the newspaper. That was the question. So if you can just help us with that, that'd be great.
Oh, very good. I have a 30-year newspaper in Long Beach, California. It's the Long Beach Times. That's my masthead. I started that 30 years ago, and I started sending some of the papers back here to people I know, the Welch brothers and some other people who. Okay, why did I start it? Okay. I started in 88 and 89 when I moved to California. Black males were so concerned about having a convertible car and a boom box in the back as loud as they could. I went to California, and I'm saying, there's got to be something more. So why did I start the newspaper? I started the newspaper for three things: to inform, educate, and entertain. We don't really push things like sports because you ask the average black youth, 14 or 15 in high school, and the first thing out of his mouth is that, oh, I want to go to NFL. Well, he doesn't know that most of the NFL black players are ex-felons. They've got charges, weapons and drugs and a whole lot of other things. So I'm saying, go to school and become a teacher. But for whatever reason, the most honorable profession out there, being a teacher, they don't want to do. So we've got to deal with a family structure. I'm long-winded, so maybe we need another
hour.
Thank you. Yeah, I pass it to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Love.
We'll cover that on another segment, y'all.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask was the importance of having different perspectives on the news, because we have the St. Pete Bulletin, we have the Weekly Challenge, and we have the Burning Spear newspaper. And so how important is it to building community to have those different perspectives? And anybody who wants to take that can take it.
I think it's important because everybody covers something different. You have one community, or not one community, one newspaper that might be covering just community-based events, and then you have another newspaper that's covering sports, and the youth, you see, and black, that is, and then you have another newspaper that's covering entertainment, all the new up-and-coming black and indie artists, whether it be models, actresses, actors, singers, rappers, whomever, so it's important to have all those areas covered by whomever may feel that it's important.
So I just want to say, from my perspective, if you all cover the same exact story, what I've learned is that perspective is always going to be different. Right. So my siblings and I grew up, and if I talk to them now about our childhood, we'd all have different stories about the same moments. So there's nothing against having multiple media covering the same thing. We don't have this conversation when you have the other newspapers, multiple, airing the same story. So likewise, I think that it's important that when we have events, converge on those events so that we can all get your perspective, your individual perspective.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I definitely agree with Carla that we definitely need, it's about being like whole and comprehensive, and you can't do that if you only have one voice. Right. You sort of have to have those multiple weigh-ins on a topic so that people can really have the knowledge or make a good informed decision about whatever it is that they, and you're right, Carla, we have about 5 different news stations. They all cover the same exact thing, and sometimes in the same exact way, and it's never our story.
Right.
So there's always room for more black stories and media and voices on this platform.
Yeah, I always try and figure out, how does a panda bear having babies become like news on every station? I just never figured that out. But I digress. To your point. Go ahead,
yeah,
brother.
I just want to unite with everything that has been placed before me as far as this question. And yeah, I really believe it's important to have multiple perspectives, especially when it comes to African people, black people. We already are in a environment where everything is against us, and it's not only against us, it's systematically against us, and it's not owned by us, it's not controlled by us as well. So if we have these different viewpoints, and also, I believe that having different viewpoints do allow, because we have different interests as people, as black people. You know what I'm saying? Some people want certain things, other people want other things. But understanding those interests and having these viewpoints allow you to recognize what you are and what you want to be and who you want to be a part of and who you want to do it with. So I have no qualms about that. I think it needs to be encouraged, and also
I want to say one thing. I want to thank y'all for what y'all doing in the media, because having different voices and different perspectives is important, and having a diverse view of our community, because we are not monolithic. All of us do not see the things the same. So there's got to be different ways of looking at it, different subjects, because I can have the Bulletin and the Weekly Challenger, and it'd be a whole set of different stories in each issue. And those once big issues, y'all both might cover that same time, but really it is all different. Then you got the Burning Spear, it's a whole certain different. and that's good. I think that's great, and I don't think it's too many communities that can, like, of our demographic, that can have this many media people get together. They have this many different forms of media, that's not a major Miami or not a major Atlanta, but yep, thank y'all for coming out for the anniversary too.
I want to tell back on what you just mentioned about different perspectives. Pinellas County, African Americans in Pinellas County, we stretch all the way to Tarpon Springs and St. Pete. And I just want to mention that not too many people in St. Petersburg knew that Tarpon Springs had the first African American mayor who served 2 consecutive terms. He termed out. Last year, someone else won. So he ran again this year. He lost, unfortunately. However, 2 years, 2 consecutive terms, and very few people here in St. Pete knew about him. So that is what we add or offer, a different perspective on African American life, African American lifestyles in North County.
Absolutely.
I just want to add one anecdote here. 3 years ago, FAA put out a proposal. They had about 2,000 low-watt radio license that they were giving out. I contacted a civil rights organization over in Tampa. They were aware of it, but they were not interested in making a proposal for it. The reason for my saying this, black newspapers have got a lot to catch up on. Until we have, like radio and Instagrams and all this, we're going to always be behind because the playing field has never been level for us to do it. So my thing is to, when the FAA or whatever it is, FCC gives out another 2,000 or 3,000 low-watt radio station, let's be on board. I'll be paying attention so we can have a different voice. I know Julian Bond, who was the chairman of the NAACP, said to me 30 years ago, he said, Love, when I'm leaving Miami and I'm on the plane, I can pick up the phone and I can call the different low-watt NAACP branches flying from Miami to D.C., and by the time I land in D.C., they got that project working. We need that kind of mythology. We need that kind of thinking power because we can't do it alone, and we sure need help.
Right.
Just speaking on the low power FM radio stations, Black Power 96 is one of those low power FM radio stations that he's talking about.
Right.
And we were also able to get another radio station as well here in St. Petersburg. So I understand what you're saying, and I think just our chairman having the foresight of and just the organization just having the foresight and understanding of media and getting the word out and controlling our narrative, because you can read the Tampa Bay Times and they just tell you how to hate yourself. You can listen to the other radio stations that's not affiliated with us, and you can listen to how to hate yourself. You know what I'm saying? So we having that foresight and understanding that the black media is in full demand, and and we're not used to having our own, so we don't know how to even support it. We don't know even how to understand the significance of being able to call up your radio station and say, yo, this is happening to me in my community right now. The word needs to get out. The words need to get out.
Right.
We don't understand that power. So, we have a lot to get used to. And in St. Petersburg, like we ahead of the curve. We're ahead of it. And like I said, I always gonna say, we have to come together as the conscious, media here. We have to have our own objectives and our own goals collectively that is contending against the white media who is tearing our community apart.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to also touch on when you said with the importance of different outlets. I look at it like this also. We are like the body, all right? You got an arm, a left arm, a right hand, a left hand, a neck, torso, right leg, left leg. but it still equals up to be a whole body. So it's the same thing with the different outlets on the magazines. You still have this, but when it comes together, it's still a whole for the black community. You see what I'm saying? To come together, read, get knowledge, and act upon it. So that's basically what I want to say about that.
No, that's a very, very good point, because my wife, she says that a lot too, and we have these conversations about unity in the community and how everybody wants to be the eyes,
right.
Everybody wants to be the ears, and I think it's like a verse in the Bible that kind of talk about that too, where everything has a role and it has a function, and I think members, the different members, different parts of the body. And I think that's also important to understand, with our community and the role that we play in community. And so that would kind of lead me to a question. And we want this to be free flowing. So I'm like, y'all making me work hard. Everybody up here have done interviews. Everybody, how when you have that guest that's just sitting over there quiet on their phone, how difficult it is. So please, let's make this, about us and really have this conversation together. You know what I mean? Come on, now we family.
I also wanted to say that if don't nobody know, a lot of us black people don't realize who want to start radio stations and go FM and not just be AM on AM waves. It's only $900 for an FM antenna.
Okay.
Only $900. You spend $900 in a month.
2, 3,
literally.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's $100.
12.
That's like $50, maybe
Right.
$25, $50 each person here right now. If we want to go ahead and start an FM, a real black FM station, not Clear Channel. I'm going to put it out there.
Right.
Not the other channels out there. We're talking a real community-based FM station. $900.
Right. And I see we've been joined by Cranston Cumberbatch, Agent X, Art in the City. And so thank you for joining us, Cranston, because Cranston brings another element to this black media experience where he's actually making films. And so I think we would definitely want to shout him out, give him an opportunity to talk about maybe the importance of getting into filmmaking, because we focus heavy on news and those outlets, but how important is it for us to make our own films and tell our own stories from your perspective?
A lot of what you just touched on, the whole fact that we have an outlet, we have a medium, we have a viewing audience that wants to know more about our stories, more about our culture, more about the internal things that we deal with as a people. And it gives us an opportunity to break a lot of stereotypes through our storytelling. It gives us an opportunity to educate more through our storytelling and our creative ways of doing that. I use, for example, in our movie Agent X, we bring in the concept and the idea of digital entrepreneurship and exactly what that means and how a community can come together and build online businesses, and that there's a market that's there. And with the way that the wave of technology and the way the world is moving, we're moving into that digital era. And our youth now, they're more digitized than we are. And so to teach them and use entertainment as a way to draw them in, but through that, educate them as well as to the opportunities and see positive people behind the threshold of ushering these things in, it really just opens a wide world of opportunities and possibilities for us.
So actually, one of the things I wanted to say, Brother John, that I don't know if everybody caught just how profound that was when Timba said, so not just only are we gathering here today, but the importance of us creating something where we gather and create that one mission, the collective mission that we're each contributing to. Like, people don't believe that that's possible. Just like, God bless you.
Look how we just said, "I'll bless you" at the same time.
Right. just like the aha moment that we all had when Ms. Barbara talked about Tarpon Springs and there being a black mayor for 2 consecutive terms. If you expose St. Petersburg, Florida to that information, that if Commissioner Welch wants to run, that's not something new. Right? Yeah. That's happened before in Pinellas County. It's doable. The city lasted and thrived under a black mayor. then like that's the key for us getting this information out to us. Because honestly, I thought there was a black mayor in Clearwater, or maybe it was just a city manager. Right? But I didn't know that there was a black mayor, or if I heard it, I didn't hear it in that way where I retained it. But that's information is critical that we get out to St. Pete. But the idea that we should be working collectively and figure out how we're going to meet monthly to have our meetings so we can keep this going.
I think another important thing that this might be a first that all us can get and sit down in this type of environment and have an open conversation in the media or about our media. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention 99 Jams the Berg, which is another FM dial station here in St. Petersburg. So we have many media outlets in our community that we have to take advantage of, that we have to support, that we have to make contributions to. You have to donate to these stations. You have to donate to these newspapers, even your digital and media outlets, because it takes money for these operations to run smoothly. Right. It takes advertisement. It takes manpower. So if y'all got any talent, reach out to any one of these organizations. They're surely looking for interns. They're surely looking for donations, and just take that one step to help this community and our media grow.
And then go ahead, Celeste.
I was just going to say, I heard the word education being mentioned several times. I think that we all collectively have a responsibility to educate our communities on the power of their voice, and the responsibility they have to tell our narrative in a way that's productive for our community. Facebook and social media is a blessing and a curse. Yeah. It's I said the last time on our show that we're no longer in the dark ages. I think by now most of you have seen the show When They See Us about the Central Park Five. Yes. And that was a time when we were literally in the dark ages. 1989, all you had was mainstream media. You didn't have Google and internet and Facebook and selfies, and you didn't have that. So all you had was that narrative that they told, that the mainstream media told. It's 2019, and I'd like to think that we as a community would never allow something like that to happen, because we have now a platform to tell our own stories, our own narrative, to really shine some light. I lived in New York at that time. All you had was those 4 major stations that told the same exact story. There was no black newspaper or black. Yeah, we were protesting, but there wasn't a 96.3. There wasn't a Bulletin News or 99.1 Jams that can sit there and break this down for our community that we can better understand. So we really need to tell people about the power of our voice. And we have a responsibility as a collective in black media to tell those stories and really teach people how to tell our stories in a positive way.
See, information is powerful. Like what she said about $900 to get an FM station. That's why we need to come together more often. There is a brother who had a station in Pinellas Park, and the sheriff department closed him down because of an illegal antenna. The friend of mine who told me about this, I talked to the fella. He was from the Caribbean, and he didn't want to lose his power by not owning the station. But I think it's time for maybe 1 or 2 of us to revisit him and let him know, hey, it's not about taking anything away from you. It's about sharing with those that need to know about it. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired going back to the 50s. I finished Gibbs High in 57 when the St. Pete Times had its Thursday colored folk page. Anybody else remember that? And every Thursday, you had color folk news. So even to this day, we're still regulated to the Thursday newspaper to see who died.
I'd just like to say, I think one important thing, on top of which I really want to commend Jabbar and Brother John, and also On the Beat St. Pete, because there's a movie that's out. It came out a few years ago called How My Dad Became Something, and there's a statistic in it about how talking heads and radio pundits were really responsible for changing the white viewpoint, the white audience viewpoint, to a pro-Trump viewpoint. It was specifically radio stations. That's the one thing that people were listening to on their way home in the car. Radio stations are less stressful sometimes for people. You just have it on. So anyway, this whole movie interviewed all these people who basically, they have family members who they said they really became these irate, fanatical people, and they were not like that prior to the year or two of radio promotion that came out for the Trump campaign. I don't know, maybe we're not supposed to get political here, but I do want to say
That's the
one
thing about
issue.
free and independent media. We talk about what we want to talk about.
Right. So, if there was one issue that I do think, while we all have different perspectives, thank you for saying we're not all a monolith. I do think that one thing that we all need to be really focused on at this point is getting the voters out. Because I don't know how many of you recently saw, there's a story passing around that, yes, it was the non-voters who put in the person in the White House. It was not the people who voted. So in our community, it was the people who did not vote for whatever their socio-political reason was, whether they were lazy, whether they were for whatever. But I think as media, the most important thing that black media needs to be doing right now is obsessing about the 2020 election. It's a year away, and we really don't have a lot of time. Also, we cannot believe the polls that are coming out. Somebody was telling me the other day, the polls are all the Democrats are doing really well. If we remember what happened in the last election, Hillary was going to win. And because people just sat back and didn't vote, it was like, oh, I don't like Hillary, I don't like this, I don't like that. Look what we got.
Yep.
So, I think if there's anything that we all need to be obsessing about, it's the election right now. It's scarily close, and I really don't even know who to vote for, but statistics prove that when more people who are pro, I don't know how to call it. I don't know if it's Democrats or people who are more in tune with the disenfranchised, the more Americans that vote, the better for the economy it is, the more perspectives we have. So, I really I feel passionately that this is where we all need to be going, because we don't have a lot of time.
I want to agree with you that, I just want to highlight that media is political. Whether you know it or not, whether you're just making a movie, whether you're making music, you're making a political statement with your art. Whether you're trying to or not, whether it's intentional or not, there's always a political side to all forms of media. When you hear these rap music and you wonder why they're getting $20 million contract to promote Us Living Bad, and then you look who paid for it. It's politically charged. It's a political payment, and you're being used in your product. But I think that I'm glad that you said politics and media. It should and it is going hand in hand. Whether you don't want to be political or not, it is a political.
I'm glad for this, most definitely, because you got to understand that 90% of the media worldwide is controlled by 6 major corporations. So once you understand that, then you understand that you're not thinking your thoughts. You're not controlling your own mind. These are not the thoughts that you're thinking. So and just to piggyback off of what my sister was saying about the voting, and I'm not the biggest advocate on voting, because I believe that we should be voting for ourselves. We should be able to. We should have our own power and our own ability to speak for ourselves. And this is what we're talking about. Not only speak for ourselves, but to control our community, control our lives, food, clothes, and shelter. Regardless of what person gets in the office. You saw Obama. We didn't have no power. Still, we in a worse situation now. So instead of us. I don't want to say don't worry about the elections and all that type of stuff. All I'm saying is we need to build us. We need to focus on us.
And here's why I appreciate that coming from you, right? Because when we hear that, particularly coming from Uhuru, we think, okay, they anti-politics, they don't do politics. But in the last 2 city elections, you had 2 candidates in those races, and you have candidates that are running in the race now.
Reparations.
So when he's saying that he's not an advocate for voting, that doesn't mean that they've excluded themselves from the process, because they have candidates that are running, and they even had a candidate running for mayor. But a lot of times that's what happens. People, when you say I'm not an advocate of it, people think that means you're removing yourself from it. And I think that's powerful hearing that coming from you, knowing that you are and your organization is actually still engaged in the process.
What I want to add is that if we recall, the popular vote, Hillary had the popular vote. The Electoral College is what put 45 in the office. So maybe we should go back to our representatives, those who are in Congress. Maybe the law should be changed.
And to that end, right? Go ahead, Andy. No, because you had something on that point, because I was actually going to pivot.
I'm going to go back a little bit.
Okay, so go for it. Go for it.
So I kind of wanted to piggyback on what Charlene was saying that can still lead into what's being talked about now, and it's that point of education. Yes, we have all of these different media outlets that are sitting here at this moment, but we need to look outside of that box and see what else we can bring in. We have the Timbuktu School of African History. That's a way to start educating your children. We look at some of these agencies that are working with our children, because those are the ones we need to start educating them now, so that they have a leg up and are not far back. They're gonna start making those decisions from the moment that they can vote. But also bring them in. Stop giving them iPhones. Give them a business,
right?
Whether it's in the media or something else, because all of us sitting here, all of these black businesses that's in our community, we are a force to be reckoned with if we come together. And that is the one thing we need to do, is come together. That radio station, $900, we have so many people here who have a voice. We could have 24-hour, 24/7, 7 day a week, shows on that radio show, and support each other, and still have other stuff that we're not breaking off, we're not pulling down. That's that is important, and it all starts with education, and it all starts to know that we are one, and as long as we believe that, then that's how we can work together.
One last insertion I'd like to make. The black church is not. Oh, okay. The black church has dropped the ball as far as I'm concerned. When you really look at the black church, it was the bedrock during the civil rights crisis. I went to see, and I call names. It's my wife's show. I went to this.
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. The view expressed by guests on the Tampa Bay
It's the guest view. Anyway, I went to one of the biggest black churches here. How long we had St. Pete Business League? 7 years now? And we were getting Dr. Claude Anderson to come to Wake Up St. Pete. There's never been a black event speaking in St. Petersburg to blow the roof off of St. Pete. So I went to this black pastor, because he had the biggest church, and my classmate said, oh yeah, he'll participate. I went to this pastor. He said, Mr. Love, he said, ain't nowhere in the world do I want a Claude Anderson in my pulpit. Okay. Then later on, the election was coming up. I think Foster was going out of office or whatever. And I picked up another local black newspaper, and I didn't see any endorsements, because black media printed has always endorsed the candidate which would be best for black folks. This same pastor told me the reason for that, because when we're mixing religion and media, and that should not be. Okay, so we have a media here who the religion does not allow them to solicit government ads or political ads, which is a no-brainer. But that's their thing, and there's nothing we can do about that. Let's get this 154 black churches that's here in St. Petersburg together to pick up the ball and do what they're supposed to do.
And that was one of the things that I was going to ask, because with us as community organizers, of course, we're here celebrating the anniversary of the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club, but we wanted to invite you all here, to celebrate with us. But we also wanted to have a conversation about what is one of the things that we can do together. And we may not be able to have this, today, but at some point, having a conversation as a collective to say, okay, we all are doing our individual thing as different members, but what is one thing that we can organize around collectively and begin to work towards? And if we want to popcorn some ideas, now we don't want the revolution to be televised, so we can keep it very high level. But I wanted to introduce that into the conversation.
I would definitely say we need a local Black Media Association, something that not only can we collectively come together to talk about the things that we get behind, the things that we support. I mean, imagine if all of us collectively supported the same movement or campaign through our media outlets.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's a way to introduce others to media. The young kids that are coming up, Lakewood High School has a media.
John Hopkins has a media.
John Hopkins, to really introduce them to. I really do think that we need a local media collective or some type of local media association. The Pointer Institute right now, I think the application process closed, but they were taking applications for diversity in media, like a leadership training that they were doing. But as a collective, we need to be able to petition Pointer as a collective, as a media association, to say, hey, I need you to support these types of things as far as Black media in our community.
And I appreciate that, because it sounds like you thought about that.
Right.
And
Brother John, I just want to point out that's extremely powerful. So everything you said, I support. But when we talk about politics, that's the area I play in well. The key thing I want us to remember is all politics is local and starts locally.
Right.
So sometimes we're so busy focused on the 2020 and the presidential election that we're missing what I come in talking about this morning. I came in talking about the Florida budget. And it was cut by $133 million. That means money is coming from somewhere, and education is one of those places that the money is coming from. So when we look at who we're putting into office, the bigger picture is, yes, who is president. But the key picture for us is who we put into office here as our city council, school boards, county commissioners, mayors, etc. So that's why I'm glad you lifted up the point of, if the Uhurus are talking about A, B, and C, the bottom line is they're putting their people where their mouth is. They're making sure they have people running for every election every time.
Well, what I want to add is, for the last maybe 2 years, I've been attending meetings to a lot of the big brother organizations that are supposed to be for educating our children. However, as far as getting the information out on them wanting to help or do things for our children, I'm finding they are talking the talk and not walking the talk. A media association would be very powerful.
I want to agree. I want to agree with the media association. So it's unanimous. I think we all button it up. But one of the things that I was saying, I was thinking what Ms. Love was saying about the churches need to come together. Like, just like now, it's a time when the media need to come together. And maybe we can lead by example, and then come to our churches as this media association, and then proposing the next steps as far as getting that 120 churches together. And it might be a step-by-step process, which we could lead from a media standpoint.
And we do have a question from the audience.
Please place your question.
Yeah, because we here. Come on up, step on up. Look, this is the Breakfast Club, and we like deep up in here in rush hour, and so this is an organizer with CHAP, Reno Moore. He has a question, and Reno, you actually have a show. Because I remember your show that he was doing. We talk about digital entrepreneurship, and I think you were using like the blog talk. Oh, look, now we got all this logistics. We got to work out logistics now.
Okay, yeah. I had a statement, not a question. Peace and light to everyone. I love the energy. I love the controlling of the narrative that we're doing. This is what our grandparents were fighting when they wanted to. They didn't want to be. They started moving from being called a boy and started maintaining their position as men. And man don't ask for things, and so when we allow people to control our image, remember they have over $1 billion a year wrapped into our image, pants sagging and everything, and that stuff affects us because then we attack each other too. We pull your pants up. I seen well hung slaves, well dressed black men in the 20s that were hanging. I don't know if we still need to ask these people for employment, but that's a consciousness issue, and that's why I didn't have a question. I had a more or less a statement, because a lot of advocacy is always done to children as far as in education. I don't have an issue with that, you know what I'm saying? But we also know that we learn from sight. And so we also need to continue to bang, and I applaud you all for banging on the consciousness of the community, because we're the ones that are showing the children the toxic behavior because we learned it as children. So when we know that consciously, that means that we have to, I guess, wake up. I guess that's what Hal Melvin and the Blue Notes was singing to our parents, right? So it's not a new phrase. It's nothing's being new under the sun. But I applaud you all because it's not a thing of what we need to do and we should come together. We are together, y'all.
I just wanted to say, piggyback off of sister girlfriend over here. I want to piggyback off of you. When it comes to educating children, I have 5 children and 12 grandbabies. Okay, so when I was when my children were being raised up, they were always, Mom, I need $1. Can I do this? Can I do that? And it was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm tired of y'all getting in my pockets. Y'all old enough to do this, that, and the other. So when my oldest son, I made him go cut the grass. So when he was slagging on the lawnmower. Okay, so let's work smart and not hard. Go tell these people to make appointments. So now on Saturdays and Sundays you making appointments. Now you got your lawn care business. So when he started acting up on that, okay, you want to wash cars? Let's wash cars. I got a little first bucket. Now you got a car wash business. You should have saw the streets. Lined up with nothing but cars. Now he's employing his friends. Right. Now his friends are working. Okay, now you got a business. Now my youngest one saw this and then, oh, Mom, I want $1. You young enough. Let's start you a business. I got them a candy store. They was making $60 after recouping everything up each, just 2 of them each. They was killing the street. Right. My thing is, I'm all about educating my children. And I'm not saying any other parents aren't like that, but this is what, like you said, we need. Every day at 8 o'clock, they was in that room reading a book. And going outside and attending and all that, that was a privilege. Let me see that first report card. Then you can choose one.
And I wanted to lift that up because that's a part of the work of this new image project that we are working on, is like redefining what's cool. That was kind of the thing. So when we started, we were doing these Stop the Violence rallies and talking to people, and they, everybody blamed the media, they blamed the music, they blamed these things. And so we commissioned a CD. We had The Smartest the New Gangster mixtape, where local artists put together songs and put them on the mixtape, and then just seeing how we can really take charge of that so that we can introduce those ideas and those concepts into our community. But I think you had something, Tim, that you wanted to say about the...
I just wanted to speak, like, when you understand that everything is connected. Like, the media is connected to the police. That's why when they kill us, the media go tell the side of the police instead of tell the side of the African victim that didn't have a gun or that was running away with his hands up, and he was a threat. It was always the police feared for their lives, so it was justified. So when we understand that, the education system, the police is in the education system. So when the police is in the education system, so when the media comes in to report this, they're going to report the side of the police and the school. Yeah, they're going to be the system. They're not going to tell you about your African child as being, harassed or terrorized in these situations. So we have to understand that this is all one thing. And what I wanted to speak on was the education, and I totally unite with Sister Charlene that we need to educate our children. And as far as Black Power 96.3, is concerned, we have a free summer training program where we're training our community to go out there and be reporters, so they can come back and bring whatever's happening in their community straight to us. And we're talking about professionalizing this. I say I paid $45,000 for my degree, to be white people certified, but this in white, I'm certified, but now I know I have these skills and I have to bring them back. It's my responsibility to give them to my community as freely as I possibly can, and and to make them available so I can keep $45,000, times whatever in my community.
Right.
And so that's part of that. But I know other people need to speak.
No, it's okay.
I just want to expand really quickly on what you were saying. I think that one of the things that I'm hoping we can move forward with as a collective, as a media association, or whatever you want to call it, is changing how people view the credibility of our information. A lot of times when we say things as a black media, it always has to be backed up by a white source. So if I tell you that you should eat more fruits and vegetables as a black woman in the media, it's like now I need to go see what the American Heart Association, or I need to go see what someone else put their stamp on, usually the white media, put their stamp on in order for me to believe it as true or believe it as real. And I think that we need to build more credibility in our own story. Believe what I'm telling you, because we do it inherently. How many stories did you listen to that your grandma told you or your mama told you?
Man, we believe if you sweep my feet with the broom.
Yes, you still mad. You boiling certain things, certain remedies at home. We still believe in that, but why won't we believe in other things that we put out there in the media? And so I think we need to work to change how people view the credibility of our news source, because then they're not running to the Tampa Bay Times to see what they're saying about it, because like you said, they're going to tell you to kill yourself, basically. You're going to hate yourself. They're not going to go to Bay News 9 who's telling you the same thing. We need to find credibility in our own information.
Now, the brother there who does the filming, you might be able to relate to this, find the information. It took me 20 years after I got back here to St. Pete to find the record or the CD. It's by a fellow named John Cassandra. I was spelling his name wrong. It's John K-A-S whatever. And the name of the album is Color Me Human. And right after Martin Luther King got assassinated, every disc jockey that played John Cassandra's songs, and they're always, his songs is mind-blowing today. Moses Part 3, check it out. They were fired. And now, it's hard for you to find something by John Cassandra. So I have this, and I will most definitely make some copies of it. And you can call me, and I can tell you how to get it. I got it on CD and that kind of thing. But there's some artists out there, and he moved to London right after the civil rights, and that's why a lot of people couldn't contact him. But his Moses Part 3 is so uplifting to me. I play it almost for anybody that visits me, and I make them sit and listen to it, whether or not they 660, old, cripple, crazy, bow-legged, or blind.
So in the last few minutes that we have, we got to land the plane.
Thank you, Brother John.
So what I'd like to do is if you all, if we can just talk about some of the things that you're working on and ways that we can support the work that you're doing. So if you can talk about some work that you have, if there's a program or something that you're doing that we can support, if we can maybe just kind of go around and we can talk about how we can support each other.
Yes.
Opa!
Yes,
We are in rush hour.
That's what happened when you broadcast live,
Broadcasting
in the restaurant.
As far as we're concerned, on the Dreammakers Productions end, we're working on Agent X Part 2. So we're finishing to write the script with that, and we're getting ready to start filming here pretty soon. We have some other short film projects that we're going to be doing throughout the summer that we're looking to finish up. Things of that nature. We're getting ready to go into the studio and actually work on some music as well to accompany these films, because that's another big part of a lot of what's missing. The music to complement the story, and so we're really going in and tackling that. So that's what's going on our end.
All right.
And more screenings of Agent X itself. We're getting ready to get out of St. Pete. We're getting ready to cross the bridge to Tampa.
Don't say it like that, though. You say get out of St. Pete. That
Right.
just makes me feel
You're about to expand.
You're about to expand. You're about to go.
It's a growth. It's a growth. We're letting more people know about the story and what we got going on down here in St. Pete. So look out for that.
Well, as a print media, we're always wanting advertisers. You can contact us. We do not do $10 full page ads any longer. It takes advertising to print our paper, and we will work with you. The Bulletin News will work with you. So if you have a business or concern that you'd like to advertise in our paper, call us at 727-485-3137, and we'd be glad to sit down with you and come up with some type of media strategy. Thank you for your business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll go ahead and say that we're on the Beat St. Pete is using the power of our voice to launch 3 Black Vegan Girls. Basically, this is not a movement to turn everybody in St. Pete vegan, I wish, but really just utilizing this platform to talk to people about the disparities in our community related to heart disease, chronic disease, and really trying to get people to think about incorporating more whole foods, plant-based foods, more fruits and vegetables into your diet. Maybe you only eat meat one time out of your 3 meals that you eat a day, or maybe you go vegan 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, anything helps as long as you're incorporating more fruits and vegetables. We're actually partnering with the Deuces Live, Night Flow Restaurant, Johnny Ruth Clark, hopefully, and also Peace Fitness to do a plant-based challenge where we actually have about 25 to 30 people where we're actually providing plant-based food meals for them for 30 days to see, their transformation and really document that and talk about that. We're also going to be hosting a natural foods market in September on the Deuces. So we're going to have some food demonstrations, a little bit of workout, something, just a little something for everybody to come out and just ask questions, see what it's all about. So, did you have anything to add, Andy?
I know Andy has stuff cooking.
One of the things that I want to add to what we're doing is like, and I said it before, is thinking outside of the box. We get so used to those 4 walls in that box, and as Charlene said, this is something that we're bringing to the community because our health is important. We want to live long, but we also want to show our children, how to live. And remember, it's different than it can be different than what's the everyday. The one thing that I do want to add is that St. Petersburg is rich in funding. And sometimes those funding opportunities aren't always told to Black and brown people, but I will guarantee someone sitting around here will know. So don't keep it to yourself. Hold out. We have the Center for Equity getting ready to open. That's for health equity. That is going to be a place that is in our community, and it's going to be a place for us to use. So use it. Come together and support each other. Don't keep your mouth shut. A shut mouth don't get fed.
And they want your number again, Mrs. Sorry Love. So if you can give she just want to give that number one more time.
The Bulletin News phone number is 727-485-3137. 727-485-3137.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Weekly Challenger, we're getting ready to do an ambassadors campaign. One of the things that I think everybody needs to go to and look at is the Unite Pinellas Equity Study for Pinellas County. There's $3.6 billion being left on the table by Pinellas County not dealing with its issues of equity and diversity. So behind this association, I also work with the Pinellas Community Foundation, and so I'm talking to a couple of different African Americans in the community about different coalitions, because I really think that we have a window to push on this equity report. And so with the ambassadors campaign, we're trying to get people to get 5 people to like us on Facebook. You can submit, then you'll become a Weekly Challenger ambassador. Well, you'll get a write up in the newspaper, and what we're trying to do is raise the visibility